How do I turn it?
This, wait a second, this one. This loosen up and tighten it.
Well, the New York Public Library was built.
Right in front of it.
Yes.
Where are you doing it?
So that's why we have a copy.
Right in front of the picture. That's where the unveiling's going to be.
Well, I think we're going to get underway. Thank you everyone for coming. Feel free to sit in one of our historic restored chairs, or stand, or sit on the floor, whatever you'd like to do. My name is Jared McCoy. I am the Special Collections Librarian here at the Peabody Room, as well as the Washingtoniana Division, which is down at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library in 19 G Street. Can I have a show of hands for you first timers who are visiting the Peabody Room? Okay, well, welcome. What you're looking at here is nothing short of a miracle. As you may know, in April of 2007, we had a fire here in the library. You can see this rather dramatic photograph in the display case showing the building going up in flames. And it's amazing that we did not lose every single thing that you see around you. The DC Fire Department, my best friends forever, were able to stop the fire, which started at the west end of the building and burned from west to east. Fortunately, the Peabody Room was at the opposite end of the building, so they were able to stop the fire before it reached the contents of the Peabody Room. So although flame never impacted anything, I had a lot of water damage. Lost about 10% of the collection. The remaining 90% had extensive water damage. Just depending on where the water poured through the ceilings, was blasted by the fire hoses through the windows. So there are a lot of materials that still are in need of conservation, which means that researchers can't have access to them because they're so fragile. So we're always looking for donations. If anybody wants to donate money to the DC Library Foundation, they're the ones who donations could be made to. All of the artwork that you see hanging on the walls, most of these pieces were hanging on the walls at the Peabody Room before the fire. Every one of these pieces were damaged by water. Luckily, we were able, through donations from the community, we were able to conserve all of these materials. This represents about $150,000 worth of art conservation. And if we have any art conservators in the audience, you folks are magicians. I mean, you do mind-boggling work, so thank you for what you're able to do to bring that these pieces of art to life. We're gathered here today for sort of an unusual presentation. Mike Copperthite, who's the great-grandson of Henry Copperthite, who was one of the co-founders of the Connecticut Copperthite Pie Company, which was started here in Georgetown in 1888. Mike came into the Peabody Room probably about a year ago, just to see if I had any information on the Copperthite family. And we have these vertical files, these folders arranged by surname of past Georgetown residents and longtime families, which of course probably represents only the tip of the proverbial iceberg of every person who's ever lived here in Georgetown for the past 250 years. And I was able to pull out a couple of folders that had little tiny Washington Post death notices, and I think they were like for your great uncles or someone like that. And it was kind of embarrassing because as Mike quickly educated me as to the history of his family and the Connecticut-Copperthite Pie Company and the role they played here not only in Georgetown but in Washington, D.C., it was like, oh, you know, I need more stuff. Mike, give me more stuff. So now I have a very thick vertical file on the Copperthite family. And it's just been really fascinating learning about the important role that this company had here in Georgetown and Washington, D.C. as a whole. Mike wanted to donate something to the Peabody Room to honor the 125th anniversary of his company. So he has a vast family archive of photographs, so he showed me a whole bunch of images. And there was one that I just immediately fell in love with. I just thought, oh, that's the photograph that I want to have framed. and put on display here at the Peabody Room. So it's kind of exciting because as you can look around here and see, we have no photographs. We have oil on canvas paintings and charcoals and pastels and lithographs and maps, but we've never had a framed photograph here on display in the Peabody Room. So I think that's kind of a historic moment that we're acknowledging the importance of photography, which as a historian, an archivist, and a librarian, I know is all too important. And really provides a lot of visual documentation for the history of not only Georgetown, but any place in the world. Mike, you want to say a few words?
Absolutely, thank you. The picture that we donated was for the 25th anniversary of the Connecticut Copper-Type Pie Baking Company, and it's an iconic picture, I think, of the corner of High or Wisconsin and O Street, where our family co-founded the Connecticut Copper-Type Pie Baking Company. I want to read something. This is actually a hard plate, but it's from a 1902 program for a reunion of the Grand Army of the Republic, which was the Civil War Northern soldiers who came to Washington that year in 1902 and did a big parade and had an encampment. And this is a story about my great-grandmother, Henry Copperthite. 17 years ago this November, there came to Washington from New Haven, Connecticut, a man who was unknown to the residents of this city. Practically penniless and without a friend from whom he could call for aid of any kind. The man was Henry Copperthite, proprietor of the Connecticut Pie Company, the largest pie industry in the District of Columbia. After countless extortions and unceasing thrift, Mr. Copperthite started in the pie baking business for himself, and in his first day, sales amounted to 90 cents. A striking contrast is shown when they state that during the Spanish War, the Connecticut Pie Company sold in one day at Camp Alders, Virginia, 19,000 of their pies to the soldiers, where he learned his trade in camp there. On August 1st, Mr. Copperthite purchased the bakery in New Haven, Connecticut, where he learned his trade for $50,000 cash. That's about almost $2 million in today's money. The bakery has a capacity of 6,000 to 8,000 pies daily. The Connecticut Pie Company of Norfolk, controlled by Mr. Copperthite, has a capacity of 8,000 to 10,000 pies daily, and the branch of the same firm in Richmond, Virginia, operated by William Van Dusen Brothers, turned from 5,000 to 8,000 pies a day. Mr. Copperthite owns a farm in Virginia, 243 acres, of which the residents of that farm are here today. Purchased 4 years ago, when he raised most of the fruits and vegetables used in his pies. The milk, eggs, butter, etc. come from the same place. And all Mr. Copperthite Bakery, nothing but pies made in our ovens alone. Here in Washington, 11,600 pies were baked in one day. Mr. Copperthite has but one hobby. He's fond of a good trotting horse. And Ida C. and Maddie C. 2.21 show he is known for a good roadster when he sees one. Mr. Copperthite is generous to a fault, particularly among his employees. A Grand Army of the Republic man in good standing and a credit to himself in this city. In 1885, Henry and Joanna Copperthite came to Washington, D.C. My family came from Scottish descent and Irish. We lost the way to this land in tidal wars, and so they were indentured servants. James and Mary Catherine Copperthite were indentured servants on a plantation owned by Martha Custis, Washington, called Dunbar Plantation on Antigua. At age 18 months, they migrated, which was a trade route to Marion, Connecticut. At age 14, Henry joined the 79 Highlanders and was a wagon driver for that famous Civil War company and was stationed at Georgetown College. After the war, wagon driver was a grade. He was a firefighter in New Haven. He drove for a pie company, which later was Olds, which later became the Connecticut Pie Company, which then later became the Peabody Pie Company. And they started baking pies. By the turn of the century, we were baking about 20,000 pies a day. By 1913, the 25th anniversary of the Connecticut Pie Company, we had 230 wagons in the city, 600 horses, 15,000 employees, and by 1923, we were cranking out almost 60,000 pies a day here in Washington alone. That's 14.5 million pies a year. We estimate that every man, woman, and child in the District of Columbia ate 2 of our pies every week. And when the two most famous characters in this city, well known, when the Senators or the Nationals won the World Series were Smokeball Johnson, Walter Smokeball Johnson, and the man from Connecticut, Henry Copperthite. In 1880, Mr. Corcoran, Mr. Offutt, Mr. Hazel, and Mr. Copperthite restored St. John's Church out of their own pocketbooks. It has become an artisan den, and pretty much in ruin. We owned Roosevelt Island, we owned Peters Mill, the two homes on South Street, which until 1997 were Copperthwaite Street, were restored by my family. We were instrumental in starting the Key Society, which was to preserve Key Mansion. And Henry co-founded the Humane Society with a woman named Harriet Beecher Stowe. And it was not only about animals, it was about the protection of children in the workplace. And so in my family from DC alone, 15 people went off to World War I, only 7 came back. If you go to World War I Memorial, my great-great-uncle was the first American citizen to be listed as dying in World War I. We have 29 members of my family in Arlington and other national cemeteries. And my uncle, who was in your vertical file, Silver Star, Platoon's Flying Cross, Bunkie, Henry Copperthite Jr., Henry Stewart Copperthite Jr., is buried at Arlington National Cemetery, not far from John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Anyway, so we're obviously pies. We don't call it ultimate frisbee, we call it ultimate Copperthite in our family. We were the second largest pie or bakery on the face of the planet, and we were the largest pie manufacturer in concern on the planet. We had facilities in New Haven, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, 3 places here in Washington, M Street, O, the whole block of O and P, on K Street, and then on Water Street and Canal Street. If you're talking about 50,000 pies a day, that's a lot of produce coming out of Georgetown. We had 30,000 acres in Shenandoah, 246 acres in Burke, Virginia, and he didn't die of old age, he died of exhaustion. It became a company called General Foods, and you may have heard of it. His partner was C.W. Post, and we brought back pies that we do have a Surgeon General letter from 1889 that says pies are good for your health, and our pies are the best for your health. We make them today with real sugar, unbleached flour, fresh produce, real lard, and for flavor. And the last thing I'll say on the pie making thing is that in 1890, two things I'm going to say. When Fannie Mae Farmer and the Cooking School of Boston Cooking School came out with their cookbook, they asked our family for pie recipes. Like Wikipedia and Google, Henry lied about the process of making pie. And to this day, Martha Stewart and everybody else does not bake a pie at the right temperature. I cannot tell you, we still have a 90-year-old in my family who was a baker before he went to the Naval Academy on World War II as a fighter pilot. And I can't give that secret away, but I will tell you not making your pies correctly. And the other thing I'll say is, when the Queen wanted pies to celebrate her Jubilee, she called on our family to bake her pies. Not Elizabeth, Victoria. And we won the Golden House Award for our war bakery and mincemeat pies back in the 1890s. All right, thank you. And
Thank you. So I just want to say, next time you visit the CVS on the corner of Wisconsin and O Street, that's where the Connecticut Pie Company sat. So as you're going up and down the aisles, if you sort of get a scent of baking pies, which I firmly believe are the afterlife of not only people but scents, you'll know where that's coming from. The people that occupied that little corner of Georgetown prior to CVS. So without further ado, why don't we lift off slowly? Oh, slowly. Slowly. Okay.
This is a very similar, both these pictures are taken at the same same time. This was in all 6 city newspapers, including the Beeswax, which was the African American newspaper, back in 1913, just a few days from today. So we are at the 125th anniversary of the Connecticut Copperhead Biotech Company.
So I also love this photo because it not only has, well, it has horses in it, so we sort of have a menagerie of animals now. We have 2 works here that have dogs, and Joanna, is that her name? Where's Joanna? Yeah, you'll have to look for the 2 dogs that are in the works of art here. So now we have dogs and horses, so you'll have to look for those for me. Yeah, somebody have a question? Yeah,
Is the building CVS now, is that the same building?
No, in 1959 there was a fire there and it burned to the ground. And so they came back in. It actually extended the building almost to the corner, which I think is 32nd Street, was the factory.
Back to the east would be less than, well, that would be 32nd, right?
Yeah.
That long view, we're looking at along the
Yeah, this is Oak Street right here, and this is Wisconsin.
Looking north,
right?
Yes.
And that's looking east.
And this is looking east, correct?
You know, what was the building used for, like a building?
Prior to that, it was Till Hazel, the Hazel construction, they had a livery stable. The Hazel family is pretty well known in Georgetown. It's northern Virginia for development. And Hazel was a famous doctor at Georgetown University. They had a livery stable, and they actually went into bankruptcy. Prior to that, and Jerry and I are actually, my boy and I, we were going to discover, well, he discovered it, I just verified it from family research. That was a slave holding pen. And I found a construction article that talked about a man loving a history there and a policeman. When something fell on me, the other person got hit by something, and then it referred to the fact that it was
What years is that building?
the construction on, I would say it was 1892.
Yes.
What were the flavors, the original pies at the Copperhead?
We had 29. I could probably cite a few of them.
But not all 29 are available today, right?
No. And before I go to vote, I want to thank the DC Library, I want to thank the city, and I want to thank Jerry McCoy, the special collections for doing this. I really think
Oh, thank you.
And for your birthday, we have a pie downstairs, especially for you. If you bear with me a second, I will probably tell you all 29 flavors that we had. And by the way, our phone number was W29, one of the first phones in the city. And so for different places, we will talk about Henry and Venice. If you bear with me just a second, I'll tell you the flavors that we did. Here we go. The following are pies made at this bakery. People buying pies should take notice of our mark stamped on each pie. Look at the star crescent and the initials HC and Company. Our mince meat pies manufactured on these things. This is the Oyster one. Okay, our pies were apple, mint, lemon, peach, grape, cranberry, pie plant, prune, whortleberry, pine, apple, currant, gooseberry, blackberry, raspberry, cherry, strawberry, prunella, custard, pumpkin, tarts, and coconut. And we did a sweet potato pie too. Then we did the meat pies also. So anyway, but we were never retail. We were always wholesale. We had food service contracts with the federal government, the Supreme Court. We did an iconic picture in our family of us delivering pie to the War Department in 1899, which is the OEOB now. And in Newport News, we provided the dough for the Doughboys in World War I, a large part of it. Henry, at age 72, was put on the Food Service Administration, which is the FDA, because anybody knew how to get pies or food supplies orchestrated to fruits that somebody doing 55, 60,000 pies a day. So he was the head of the Food Service Committee, along with Mr. C.B. Robinson, who was that kind of.
Well, very good. We have some a limited supply of some posters over here that you're welcome to take. And there's a stack of postcards that show the photograph of the horses right over